To say that the Kia Sportage is a popular SUV would be a bit of an understatement. Last year, it was the best-selling family SUV in the UK, and in January of this year, it was the best-selling car, full stop. Now, if you're a What Car reader, that shouldn't come as any surprise because you'll already know that the current Sportage is practical, packed with kit, and competitively priced. It even comes with a class-leading 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. We like it so much that we named it our family SUV of the year. However, Kia is not a brand to rest on its laurels. So despite the fact that the current Sportage was released not that long ago, back in 2022, it's already been treated to a comprehensive midlife facelift, and we've been invited to take a look at it. Now, before we dive into the mechanical changes, let's take a look at the design, which I'm sure you can already see is a case of evolution rather than revolution. And that makes a lot of sense because this car is very popular and buyers clearly like how it looks. So Kia hasn't reinvented the wheel, it's just set about refining the overall design. So at the front, you'll see it's gained these column-like headlights. It's now got an almost full width front grille, and everything's just been squared off a bit to bring the design closer to the brand's electric products like the EV3, EV6 and EV9. If we come around the side, you'll have to have a very keen eye to notice that these front fenders have been reprofiled so that they blend seamlessly into the longer front bumper. And if you come further down the side, you'll notice that this side cladding is a slightly different shape. You also get a selection of new wheels that come in 17, 18 and 19 inches. This car is wearing the new 19-inch wheel design, and these have been reserved for range-topping GT Line S models. Around the back, the changes are a lot more subtle, but if you look closely, you might notice that the rear taillights have a new light signature. So this is very much a case of, if you like the look of the current Sportage, you're going to be very happy with this. Like the changes to the exterior, the changes that have been made under the bonnet of the new Sportage are subtle but noteworthy. Maybe the biggest surprise is that the mild hybrids have gone. Instead, your entry-level Sportage now comes with a regular turbocharged 1.6-litre four-cylinder petrol engine badged TGDI ICE, ICE standing for internal combustion engine. Now, Kia hasn't given us any official power outputs, but we'd expect somewhere in the region of 160 brake horsepower. And you'll definitely be able to get it with a 6-speed manual gearbox or a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic. More attention, it must be said, has been paid clearly to the regular hybrid and the plug-in hybrid models because both get an uptick in power. The regular hybrid gets an extra 29 brake horsepower and the plug-in hybrid gets an extra 42 brake horsepower compared to its predecessor. It's got that extra power because both cars get a new electric motor that is said to give them punchier performance. Both the regular hybrid and the plug-in hybrid are not available with a manual gearbox, but instead they get an all-new 6-speed automatic, which is really good news because if there was one weakness of those cars, it was that the existing 6-speed automatic gearbox is a little sluggish. Both hybrids also get a new smart regenerative braking system where you can adjust the level of regen using the flappy paddles on the back of the steering wheel, provided you're in eco mode. If you're in normal or sport mode, the paddles work as normal, letting you shift up and down the automatic gearbox. If you have a plug-in hybrid, that also gains new drive modes. Green zone means that when you're in a town or village, you're producing effectively zero tailpipe emissions because the car prioritizes driving in electric mode. But the biggest news of all, at least in our opinion, is that the plug-in hybrid model will be available for the first time as a front-wheel drive model, and that will benefit buyers in two specific ways. One, front-wheel drive hybrids tend to be more efficient than their four-wheel drive counterparts, and that's because the electric battery only has to power one motor, not two, and they tend to be lighter, with the upside being better efficiency, like I said, and hopefully a longer electric range. The second way it will benefit customers is that Kia will hopefully be able to position this car at a lower price point than the current four-wheel drive model. To unlock your Sportage, you can now use your phone as a digital key. We've seen this feature on the EV3, EV6, EV9 and on the Sorento, so it's nice that you finally get it on the Sportage. Climb inside and you'll see that the interior looks pretty familiar to the old car, but there are some very useful changes. So the first and arguably most obvious is this brand new steering wheel that's clearly taken inspiration from the EV3 and EV9, and it's a really nice design. This one's wrapped in faux leather. I suspect that's going to be only on range-topping GT Line S trim, but even nicer than that is you get these nice physical buttons. There's no haptic buttons in sight, so I hope you're listening, VW. I also like that you get these new drive mode and terrain mode buttons on the steering wheel as well. These used to be down on the center console, but because they're mounted up here, you can now cycle through them on the move without taking your hands off the wheel. That's a very nice touch. Something else I've also noticed is you get a new ambient lighting strip. Now, it's quite hard to see in this very bright studio, but at night it lends the interior some nice ambience, and that sits on top of slimmed down air vents. But the most important change in here is the new 12.3-inch infotainment system, and it sits in a new, more squared off bezel than the one before, a bezel that also contains the 12.3-inch digital driver's display. Now, it is worth noting that on mid-spec cars and base cars, this digital driver's display will be a little bit smaller at 4.3 inches. The infotainment system itself runs an updated version of Kia's CCNC operating system, which stands for Connected Car Navigation Cockpit. What it actually means is that you can now connect multiple Bluetooth devices to the infotainment system at the same time. You get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and you can also choose from a variety of entertainment packages, getting you things like Disney+, Netflix, YouTube, and a range of games. On regular hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions of the new Sportage, that infotainment system can also be augmented into a 10-inch head-up display, which is great. So if you're using, say, Google Maps as your navigation, that will be shown on your head-up display, and you can also use the head-up display to go through things like Apple Music or Spotify. So that is a very nice addition. But my favorite thing about this new infotainment system is that Kia's worked really hard on making it easier to use, and I have to admit, it seems really quick to respond to my inputs, and I like the fact that the icons are now much bigger than they were, so they should be easier to hit when you're on the move. If you swipe down on the screen as well, a bit like on a smartphone, you get access to some quick shortcut buttons. Again, I can see that being really useful when you're driving. This car, like the EV3, will also get Kia's AI voice assistant. Now, it's powered by ChatGPT, and that's a very good thing because it should be able to recognize natural speech, and you can ask it to perform complex tasks. So for example, say you want to find a restaurant in Richmond upon Thames, you can ask it for a list of top 10 best restaurants in that area. It can even read you the reviews of that restaurant, and if you choose to book it, it'll make a phone call and navigate you there. So a very clever piece of kit. The only thing is, when we sampled early versions of ChatGPT-based voice systems, they were a little bit hit and miss, especially the one in the VW ID.7.
Sorry, your search did not return any results. Starting online search. Would you like to listen to the station How to Love Your Body? The official Undiet online.
However, because they can be updated over the air, they've got better and better every time we've used them. So hopefully, by the time this car hits the market, this system will be very polished. Sitting below the infotainment system, you'll have probably already noticed that Kia has decided to retain this touch-sensitive panel, which houses key shortcut buttons for things like your map, media, and setup button, but it can also be used to adjust your climate control. Now, usually we actually like physical buttons for climate control because you don't actually have to look for a small icon while you're driving. You can just feel it by touch. However, this system we found actually works really well, and that's because it's very clearly laid out, it's quick to respond, the icons are quite big, and crucially, you actually have physical knobs for adjusting the temperature. In terms of interior quality, the Sportage has always had the edge over its closest rivals, cars like the Ford Kuga and the Nissan Qashqai. And I'm pleased to report that hasn't changed with this new model. There's a really nice mix of materials and everything feels incredibly well screwed together. Even the buttons have very nice damping to them. My favourite thing though is that Kia has replaced what was once down here. You used to get piano black plastic that picked up finger marks and dust very readily, and it's been replaced with this brushed plastic surface, although it actually feels like real metal. Now, it is worth bearing in mind that the car I'm currently sitting in is a European spec of Sportage, but I've been informed that this is pretty representative of what we'll get here in the UK on range-topping GT Line S models. So if you like the look of this two-way coloured faux leather and this Alcantara-like suede, you'll be wanting to go for the range topper. I don't know at this moment what the lesser models will look like, but as a benefit, they will cost a bit less than this car. Because the platform of this car hasn't changed with this new update, it's just as practical as it was, which is to say that you've got a little bit more legroom than you get in a Hyundai Tucson, and there's enough headroom and elbow room for 4 adults to sit in here very comfortably. Now, it is worth noting, if you go for a range-topping GT Line S model with a panoramic roof, that does eat into headroom somewhat, but I'm 5'9" and I'm sat behind my driving position, and as you can see, I've got plenty of room back here, and headroom really isn't that bad. The other thing that helps headroom is that these rear seats recline, so you can lounge out on a long journey. Speaking of long journeys, children will also be very happy to find that you have 2 USB-C chargers back here. Very handy if you want to keep your tablet or iPhone topped up on the move. And you also get, strangely enough, 4 coat hangers. 1 here, 1 here, and 2 down here. Like rear seat space, boot capacity remains unchanged for this car. So the plug-in hybrid gets 540 litres, the petrol car gets 562 litres, and the hybrids get a whopping 587 litres. Now, in the outgoing model of the hybrid, we managed to fit in 8 carry-on suitcases, which is pretty impressive when you consider the Renault Austral and Nissan Qashqai could only take 6. Kia hasn't confirmed final specifications for the new car, but the outgoing model gets a height adjustable boot floor as standard, and this pre-production example also features one. Now, they're particularly handy because not only do you get storage under the boot floor, but when it's in its highest position, it also eliminates any form of load lip. That makes loading in and taking out heavier items very easy. The rear bench also splits in a very handy 40-20-40 configuration, meaning you can load in long items such as skis while having 2 passengers sitting in the back. It's also very handy that in the wall of the boot here, you have remote seat releases. Pricing and specifications for the new Kia Sportage are yet to be confirmed, but we can tell you that the model will be moving to a more simple 3-tier trim lineup rather than the 4 that we currently have. At the bottom, you'll find a new Pure trim, which basically absorbs the existing 2 and 3 trims. In the middle, you'll have GT Line, and at the top, you'll have GT Line S. Now, that might sound like the buyer actually has less choice, but it's important to note that the regular hybrid and the plug-in hybrid on the current car cannot be had in entry-level 2 trim. Whereas with this new Sportage, you'll be able to pick whatever trim you want and pair it with whatever powertrain you want. So I think that's a really nice move forward. Now, it would be reasonable to expect that the new petrol car and the new regular hybrid will be a touch more expensive than the outgoing model. But we actually expect the entry point for the plug-in hybrid models to drop slightly because of the new front-wheel drive variant. Thanks very much for watching this first look at the new Kia Sportage. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, make sure to click the link up here and subscribe to our channel. And if you'd like to learn more about the new Kia Sportage, why not visit whatcar.com by clicking the link over here.